Hello, I am Patrick Collie with Keystone Elder Law. This is Keynotes, a series of conversations about issues affecting the elderly, people with special needs, and veterans of the armed forces. Very many clients of Keystone Elder Law are later in life and looking at downsizing from the homes they've lived in for a long time to either a smaller home, perhaps a condo where they don't have to do any yard work, or maybe they're moving to a continuing care retirement community, whether it's independent living, personal care, or even skilled nursing care. Today, we have Andrea Kimmel of the Relocation Project, who specializes in managing the move of older people to smaller spaces. And there's a lot that goes into that might not occur to you right off the bat. So Andrea, thank you so much for setting aside some time to talk with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me this morning. I appreciate it.
And just tell us a little bit about your background. How did you find yourself in this line of work? What drove you to dedicate your time and energy to helping older people to downsize?
Honestly, it was kind of a happy coincidence. My husband was in the United States Coast Guard for about just over 20 years. And so every time we moved, I kind of had the task of resorting myself and figuring out what life looked like in this new place. And when we were at our last duty station in California, I just happened upon a move management company out there that did the same thing as I'm doing here, specializing in helping people that are downsizing. And from the first day that I worked with them, I knew that I had found something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life, because it was just, it was such an amazing feeling to walk into something that feels really overwhelming for people and be able to help in a really practical way. And all of our move experience, I think, really, it brought a lot to the table for me. I was able to kind of step into it pretty easily. And it clicks with my brain. So,
well, I've moved a few times and it's awful, and I dread the next time I'm going to have to move. So I can immediately get a sort of sense of why this would be valuable. And I have friends and family who are in military families, and every time they move, I just wonder, how do you do it? I mean, just packing the whole family up, not knowing what box your clothes or your silverware are in, and it's just it's really a hectic process. And I would imagine it's an even more necessary and valuable service for older people. Maybe they're separated by geography from their children, or for whatever other reason, they just maybe they have more stuff because they've had time to accumulate it. So I can just imagine why this is such a valuable service for older people especially. So talk a little bit about what a move management company does as opposed to a company of movers, and why it is so beneficial for older people to consider a move management company when thinking about downsizing.
sure. So most of the clients that we work with, they're not just moving to another space. They are moving and kind of taking down the amount of possessions they have by at least half, typically. And so that just feels even heavier than a traditional move, because you're left with all these things that you don't really know what to do with. And it can feel very paralyzing trying to even begin to set all those things into motion. It has been my experience that clients, because they feel so overwhelmed, they don't even get started. They just kind of stay where they are. And so the benefit of bringing in a move manager is that they can really take on a lot of that stress for the client. So the client can just hand the things off. At our beginning consult, we talk about the things that are causing stress, the things that, that the services that they would most like to see. And then we're able really to make sure that we can make those things happen for the client. So typically a move manager would be able to not only help with, figuring out where the things that you don't want to take are going, but also make sure the things you do want to take are going to fit nicely through floor planning. We help with the physical aspect of packing. And then my favorite part is that we, on move day, if it's a wanted service, obviously, we unpack and set up homes. So by the time we leave on move day, everything is unpacked. We have art hung on the walls, the beds are made. So it really is walking into a ready-made space for the client, and they can just get used to their new space rather than worrying about all the things that they need to do.
That's a nice overview, and I can certainly identify with the emotional component of this and the procrastination. We certainly see clients all the time at Keystone Elder Law who have a range of mixed emotions, especially when there's a loved one who needs to go into a safer space. You know, maybe their existing home isn't set up for one floor living and stairs are just no longer a safe option. There's any number of reasons why a person might need to make a move. And it might have nothing to do with long-term care in your line of work. And you might work with clients who that might be well in the future if it ever becomes a reality. But the emotions are always there because there's an emotional attachment to where they've been living. There's all those memories tied up in the place and the things in that place. It's you know, very much a part of their identity, and I'm sure you have to approach that initial contact with clients with a lot of compassion for that range of emotions that they might be going through. How does that initial talk go, and what are your what's in your mind? How would that ideally go in terms of, you know, you said people put it off. When should people start thinking about this? When should they contact you, and what does an initial consult look like?
Okay, yeah. So an initial consult is really just a meeting where we sit down, we talk about the details of the move that are known. Sometimes that's very few, but we talk about what we know. Do we know where we're moving? Do we know what size of space we're moving into, those kind of things. Sometimes people have multiple details in place before they bring me in, sometimes they don't. So we talk about that, we talk about the services that I can offer, and I answer any questions about what we do. Often people they haven't really heard of this before, so it's a new idea. So there's often a lot of questions to kind of go over. And then I ask for a tour of the home to see the scope of work, to see how much downsizing there is to do, to see potentially how much furniture there would be extra to bring in an auctioneer, or, you know, my supplementary services. And then that consultation results in a written estimate that I send either via email or mail. And it really gives a really good idea to the client of what it would take to engage our services based upon the services that they tell me they'd like to see.
In a perfect sort of preparation, how far in advance of a move would this conversation, this initial consult, take place?
My preference would be starting about 3 months in advance. I think that gives you don't want to start really, really early because, you know, you are going through the house kind of taking things away. So if you start too early, it can start to feel, I call it the hurry up and wait. We went through it every time we moved with the military. If I started too early, it just felt like I was ripping apart life too early. So I don't think you need to start way too early. But 3 months gives you a good amount of time, especially if you are moving though in a high move time, like a summer. You need to be very flexible with your timing. And the sooner that you can get someone scheduled, the better. Because moving companies book up months in advance. And so really, as soon as we get a move date, we book a moving company to do the moving of the furniture and the boxes on move day. And so the sooner that I have those dates and I have the ability to engage the moving company, the better.
So assuming a client, after that initial consultation, reviews the estimate and decides that they want to work with you, I would imagine most of your work happens before the move. I would, you know, breaking it down into before the move, the moving day, and anything that happens after the move. I would imagine the bulk of what you do happens leading up to moving day. So in addition to making sure that there's a moving company to do the heavy lifting. What else are you doing? Are you going through the house? I mean, I would imagine to prepare to recreate a living space somewhere else, you're going to have to capture with photos or something else. What do they have in mind or what do they have currently? And you mentioned floor planning. So what all goes into this planning before the move?
So the very first meeting that we have, we sit down and we kind of talk about how the whole of working together is going to go. We have a nice packet of information that helps them with a packing list for right before the move. We have some questions that they need to kind of review and make sure they know what their community offers, make sure they know what addresses they need to change. If they'd like our help with that kind of stuff, we can help too. And then we kind of go through and make sure that we know exactly what we're doing. So for example, we make sure that we know if they want a cleaning company to come in the day after the move transpires, before the new movers would take the new owners would take ownership. So we kind of go through all those things. And then we take a tour of the house and we mark the furniture that we know wants to go. And at that stage, I say, anything that you want to take, you tell me, yes, I would like to take this. But tell me the things that are non-negotiable for you, and I'll make sure that those get into the floor plan. So we do that tour, and then we take measurements of all that furniture, and we go home and we plot out a floor plan based upon the measurements of the new space that they're moving to. And what the floor planning tool that I have is really neat. It's a magnetic board, and it's very easy to move the pieces around. And so then the client and I sit down together and we just see how it fits, and we move things around and we make a plan that feels good to them. So that's the floor planning piece. Often we find that things don't fit as well as we hope, and so we have to make some adjustments and some changes. But as soon as we have the floor plan in place, we really just start systematically sorting through the house. And it's nothing fancy. It's opening every drawer and every closet and really looking at things. And it's easy to discount what we have when it's behind hidden spaces, right? So we just look through everything, and that can be spread out over the course of 2 months, or we can consolidate it down to a month. The less time we have, the more frequently we'll have to work together. The more time we have, it can be sort of a leisurely thing. We do that up until the pack day. And pack day is always just one day before the move. So really clients are only having a disruption of their stuff, their everyday stuff, for about a day and a half with us. We don't really pack anything early. And then in that pre-move time, we're probably also lining up auctioneers if necessary, or we're dropping off donations for clients, those sorts of things. One other thing that we sometimes do is ship items to family members that don't live in the local area. We can ship small shipments of furniture up, down to just a single box at UPS. But we do that often as well.
So you must have relationships with not only moving companies, but with, I don't know, companies that specialize in shipping. If you're that, I guess, prepared to find places for things to go, do you also work with consignment shops or other, charities, other places to offload the belongings that aren't going to go to the new space?
Yeah, we absolutely do. The relocation project is a member of NASM, so National Association of Senior Move Managers. It's the only national association of its kind, but it requires that we adhere to ethical guidelines, that we are insured, and that we are functioning as a proper business. And it also gives me access to companies worldwide. So some of those shipping companies that you mentioned, other people like me in other parts of the country. So if someone was moving from here, let's say to Florida, I could hook them up with someone like me where they're going, or vice versa. So it's a really great resource. But I also have lots of local resources like you said, moving companies, auctioneers, junk haulers. I know pretty much every thrift store in the area, and I work with appraisers if people have items that they'd like appraised, or to make sure that we're going to get the fair market value for items, we can bring them in. Pretty much anything that people ask me to find, I'm able to find with the network of people that I have created.
That's great that you're a part of a national organization, and I saw that link on your website, and we'll include that when I post the video, because I mean, among other things, as far as resources, it also ensures a level of trust, because you know, people are really trusting you with a significant part of their life. This is a huge transition, and I'm sure you build that trust through that conversation. I mean, I think you restore some sense of control by going over that board with the way the floor plan will work, and allow the client to, you know, help to move things around and see different ways that it would work, because there's probably a feeling of loss of control, and you're restoring that and allowing them to feel empowered as they create their new space. And that's probably is significant for them. An aunt of mine used a move manager a number of years ago, and part of the conversation was just, you know, when so much accumulates and there's resistance to giving things up, it's sort of a, not a hand-holding, but a rational conversation. You know, do you still bake? No. Well, then do you think you need 6 bread pans, and you know, do you need 10 cheese spreaders? And gradually people start to see that you're helping them systematically to fit into a new space that will be a comfortable home. So that's such an amazing process that you go through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, I tell them I provide gentle pushback. You know, I'm there to, at the end of the day, they are in control of everything. And if they end up taking 12 cheese graters, then they get to take 12 cheese graters. I don't ever make any decisions apart from them. That they make their decisions. But I am there to say, in my experience, this is not a good choice. Or, you know, in my experience, your cabinets are going to be overfull and you're not going to be able to find anything. And that's all that I can do. But I do find that, you know, when we have those conversations and people push back, and then they get on the other side, they say, maybe I should have listened. So but I say, well, then feel free to have us come back and we'll help you again. And we'll make sure that it edits down to what exactly you need it to be now. So it's not a right or a wrong answer. It's a different process for everybody. We're just there to help as best we can and make it as good for them as we possibly can.
So talk to me about the actual move day, and then whatever happens after the move, because you've systematically prepared for it. You didn't want people to be living out of boxes, so you did sort of keep certain things until move day. So what happens on move day, and then what do you do after the move is over?
So on move day, the team lead shows up about a half hour before the moving company would show up. And they pack up the last minute items. So we always leave out any items that the client would need for breakfast that morning, usually a coffee pot, a toaster, you know, a couple of things, plate, cup. So there's a small kitchen box that needs to be packed. We pack up the last minute bedding, and then often we pack up lamps at the last minute too, a couple, because a lot of houses don't have overhead lighting. So we make sure to leave some lamps for the evening hours. So the team lead does that last minute packing. The movers arrive and the team lead takes the movers on a tour. Typically, you know, unlike a traditional move, not everything is leaving the house on move day. So we use a lot of stickers to tell the moving company what they're taking, what items are moving, and what items are staying. And so the lead takes the movers on the tour, shows them that, points that out really over and over, and then they just start loading up. The team lead is there the whole time, and if the client wants to leave and go enjoy a leisurely breakfast or go take a walk in the park, that is absolutely okay with us. At this point, we've worked with the client a lot, and we know what we're doing, what they're hoping to see, and we're able to take that on for them if they want. Once the load up has completely occurred, we all drive over to the new residence, wherever that is, and typically the lead will show the movers the different spaces and what furniture would be going in from that they took from that house. So a quick tour, and then the unloading begins. And we always have the movers keep kitchen boxes to the end. So those are the first things that come in, and our team is there to begin unloading the kitchen. So as the movers are unloading, we are hurriedly unpacking kitchen, as well as wardrobes, the clothes that just go right back into the closets. And then the movers usually finish a couple hours after they begin there, and we continue unpacking. But by the time we leave, unless it's a much larger residence than we're used to doing, we can take all the boxes with us. We usually hang art. Every once in a while, people say, I'm not ready for that yet, or it's something really heavy that we don't feel comfortable hanging. But usually we hang the art. Beds are always made. We take the client on a quick tour to make sure they're okay with how we've unpacked kitchen and closets. And then that's pretty much it for move day. After the move, often we'll go back to the residence to meet auctioneers or junk haulers if we haven't been able to get that accomplished before the move happens. It's always my preference that the move happens before those things happen. It's just less people in your home, less people messing with, what's going on in your house. It makes your house feel the same until you move, rather than emptying it. It's just not as nice of a feeling. So that's usually my preference. But after that move, that would be sort of the last things that we might do is finish with the clearing.
So people watching this are undoubtedly going to be blown away by the level of thought that you've put into this process and things that would not have occurred to them. What sort of tips do you have to any people watching this video who are thinking of downsizing at some point? Maybe they're not sure when yet, but what tips do you have to prepare for the process?
I think there's a couple of things that you can do. The first is really think about the things that are the furniture pieces that would be most important to you, and have a clear idea kind of the big stuff that you would want to go. That is helpful. If you haven't thought about that at all, that can feel like the first big task that's overwhelming to figure out what furniture you'd want to go. And then another thing is think about the things in your home and decide if there's anything that's really important to you to give to someone that you know or love. If you have thought out those things, or if your children have said, I really love this item and I would like this, knowing what those items are makes that an easier process as we start going through. Even if it's sending out an email to your family and saying, is there anything as we begin to downsize that you would love to have of mine? That can be very helpful. And then the last thing is a really practical thing. Downsize your file cabinet as you have time. File cabinets and paper heavy spaces are really a place that clients get tripped up, because once we get into the heaviness of the move, there's so many things that are going on. Real estate, doctor's visits, just being overwhelmed with the thoughts of all these things. And so going into a place like a file cabinet and trying to downsize it can feel like something you don't want to do. But paper is heavy. It creates a lot of boxes. And I can guarantee that probably 50%, if not more, of what you have in there you no longer need. And so that can be a really easy space for you to downsize on your own. Even if you hire a move management company, they'll probably give that to you as a homework area, because there's nothing that I can do to help in a file cabinet sort of space, but stand there and watch you look at paper. And that's not a good use of my time or yours. So that is, I would say that's a really big place to get started and really downsize that paper.
I'll back you up as an attorney and tell people that they probably don't need those tax returns from the 1970s anymore. And it's, on top of that, buying a scanner is relatively affordable. There's even apps on phones to scan certain documents and keep a record of it if they're on the, sort of on the cusp of do I keep it, do I not? And, so there are, technology can really help with all that heavy paper. Andrea,
Absolutely.
how can people get in touch with you at the Relocation Project?
Yeah, so you can check out my website. It gives a lot of information about us, about who we are, the people that work with me, also how we got started and all of our services. So it's a good source of info. That is therelocationproject.net, and maybe you could post a link to that with this video.
I sure will.
Okay. They could also feel free to give me a phone call. The phone number is 717-500-1474, and that rings directly to me. And then I'm also available by email, which can be found on that website, but it's my name, Andrea, at therelocationproject.net.
Wonderful.
So yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so enlightening, I think, for people going through a significant and often emotionally charged time in their life. And I think that just knowing this resource is out there will really provide a glimmer of hope for people. So thank you for setting aside some time.
Yeah, thank you.